I'm Lu Yan from Beijing Review Magazine, and this is the Governance Podcast, a podcast that explores the past, present, and future of governance in China as it works toward meeting its development goals and finds its place in the global community. One of the most important concepts in Chinese Marxism that has been introduced since Xi Jinping became top leader of the Communist Party of China in 2012 is 两个结合, commonly translated as the two integrations. These two integrations are 1. Integrating the basic tenets of Marxism with China's specific realities, and 2. Integrating the basic tenets of Marxism with China's fine traditional culture. While integrating Marxism with China's national conditions has been one of the party's core objectives since its founding in 1921, the objective of integrating Marxism with traditional Chinese culture was not formally established until 100 years later, when Xi introduced it in a 2021 speech marking the centenary of the party. During the following years' Communist Party of China National Congress, the concept of the two integrations was written into the party constitution and now also features prominently within the framework of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. In this episode of the Governance Podcast, we will talk to Joseph Gregory Mahoney, a professor of politics and international relations at East China Normal University in Shanghai, about the importance of this theoretical breakthrough. Professor Mahoney has studied Chinese politics for more than 2 decades and is a long-term contributor to Beijing Review. In his answers, Professor Mahoney mentions Marxist dialectics, which may be unfamiliar to some listeners. A brief explanation of dialectical thinking is that it recognizes that no truth or reality is static and that the nature of a particular thing is constantly evolving through the resolution of contradictions within it. For this reason, the dialectical method of trying to understand something is to first develop a thesis of its nature, then identify contradictions that challenge that thesis, then resolve those contradictions to create a new thesis to be once again challenged. The Marxist adaptation of this dialectical thinking, known as dialectical materialism, recognizes that the engine of historical change is not just contradictory ideas, but also conflicts within the material and economic conditions of a society. Now, on with the podcast. Professor Mahoney, thank you for joining our podcast. First of all, could you please give us some background information on the first integration?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. The first integration between Marxism and China's specific realities has been a core value of the CPC since the party's founding in 1921, although it was forged and strengthened in response to devastating setbacks, especially the KMT or Nationalist Party's escalating attacks in the late 1920s. In those early years, Chinese Marxism generally hewed to Soviet-guided theory and classical Marxist texts, even as figures like Li Dajiao and Mao Zedong were already developing new, more locally grounded directions. Now, a major turning point came at the Junyi Conference in 1935, held during the Long March, the CPC's strategic retreat from Jiangxi and other provinces to a new revolutionary base area in Shanxi province. There, Mao Zedong consolidated his leadership, and the stage was set for major theoretical breakthroughs, especially the two classics of 1937, On Practice and On Contradictions. Now, these works are widely recognized as being some of the most significant, perhaps unparalleled innovations in Marxist dialectics. Thereafter, Chinese Marxism emerged as a distinct yet authentic Marxism, one specifically suited to China's conditions.
Why then is the second integration, integrating the basic tenets of Marxism with China's fine traditional culture, so important?
On the one hand, the second integration is the newer and perhaps more theoretically interesting element. On the other hand, what it accomplishes is an explicit articulation of what was always true in Chinese Marxism. For example, when Mao was rethinking Marxist dialectics in 1937, he did so under the influence of the Chinese concept of yin and yang. When Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping established the goal of achieving a Shaokeng, or moderately prosperous society in the late 1970s, he was influenced by Confucian wisdom found in the Book of Rites. The theory of the three represents, introduced by President Jiang Zemin in 2000 to define the role of the party in society, acknowledges the need to preserve and promote advanced elements of Chinese culture. When Xi's predecessor, Hu Jintao, promoted the value of harmony, he emphasized one of the most important concrete universals found in Chinese political philosophy, articulated in the earliest writings in Chinese history during the Shang dynasty more than 3,000 years ago. And when Xi formally integrated Chinese Marxism with the first principle of Taoism, harmony between humanity and nature, we see again the influence of Chinese wisdom that long predated Karl Marx and the development of Marxism, providing not only valuable insights that have been useful for strengthening Marxism and making it more Chinese, but also demonstrating how millennia of Chinese civilizational experience, in many respects, prefigure many of the core values of Marxism. Why, then, is the second integration an innovation? It marks a clear departure from more tentative adoption, occasional ambivalence, and general suspicion of what some Marxists considered cultural practices associated with backward feudal traditions. Today, official discourse treats the recovery of traditional wisdom as a new cultural mission, in part recognizing that Chinese Marxism was always already deeply Chinese, but likewise opening the door to even more productive Sinicization, including concepts like Da Tong, or Great Harmony, Tiansha, or all under heaven, all the land under the name of the Son of Heaven and the right to rule over such land, and the people as foundation, the Minben tradition. Of course, this does not mean one should revert to retrograde elements from the past, such as the misogyny sometimes associated with patriarchy, nor does it open the door to elevating any of the major schools, including Confucianism, Taoism, Chan Buddhism, Mohism, legalism, and so on, to a position where they are equal to or competing with Marxism. However, in many respects, it does continue the rich tradition of syncretism that has long been a distinctive feature of Chinese thinking, which, properly understood, was always a willingness to learn and carry forward wisdom wherever one finds it.
What does the second integration accomplish?
Let us examine more closely how the second integration shapes Chinese Marxism's call for ecological civilization, beginning with the value of harmony between humanity and nature. Now, ecological civilization is one of the 5 aspects of a civilization that Xi emphasizes, along with material, political, and social aspects, and what is literally translated as spiritual civilization, meaning cultural and ethical aspects. First, the Taoist concept of Tianren Heyi, or harmony between heaven and humanity, is explicitly framed as prefiguring Marxist ecology. Official discourse argues that the Taoist principle, Tao Fa Zhiran, the Tao follows nature, aligns with Marxist critique of the rift between humanity and nature under capitalism. Likewise, the traditional view of nature as an interconnected whole rather than merely an exploitable resource is seen as resonating with dialectical materialism. This integration directly supports concrete policies today, from carbon neutrality targets to the maxim that lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets, all of which respond to the people's desire for a better environment and improved living standards. Academic articles in Qiushi and other CPC theoretical journals reinforce this narrative by tracing a lineage from classical ecological wisdom. They simultaneously correct the man must conquer nature perspective that was characteristic of the first generation of CPC leadership, presenting the current synthesis as the correct and mature understanding. Second, the second integration reworks the value of social harmony through a synthesis of Confucianism and classical Marxist class analysis, the latter which sees societies being divided into two main social classes contending with each other. Hu laid important groundwork with his harmonious society concept, but this has since been developed further. Today, Confucian principles such as harmony is precious and harmony and diversity are presented as distinctly Chinese approaches to social contradictions, approaches resolvable through mediation rather than antagonistic struggle. Now, this synthesis serves both domestic and international objectives. For example, it underpins major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics while reinforcing domestic stability. Here, Marxist class struggle is not abandoned but historicized. Direct class struggle remains appropriate for revolutionary periods, whereas post-revolutionary China can draw on traditional harmony concepts to guide socialist construction and to advance a multipolar world and a shared future for humanity. Finally, common prosperity is also linked to traditional concepts. The ancient vision of Datong, or great harmony, drawn from the Book of Rights of a classless, property-sharing society, is presented as evidence that egalitarian aspirations are indigenous to Chinese civilization rather than merely imported with Marxism. Concordantly, Confucius's admonition to not worry about scarcity but worry about inequality is cited to support wealth redistribution policies. Now, this cultural grounding resonates deeply among the public and lends legitimacy to various disciplinary and regulatory campaigns, whether targeting official corruption, platform monopolies, or even celebrity tax evasion. Now, such measures are framed not as arbitrary interventions, but as a return to civilizational values against the disorderly expansion of capitalism and other unhealthy practices.
What are its broader implications?
One of the defining features of the new era, which began in 2012 when Xi took office as the party's top leader, is the civilizational confidence and cultural self-awareness that the CPC and the Chinese people have developed as the country has scored major development breakthroughs and reemerged as a major power. Now, this confidence is not merely symbolic. The two integrations concept shapes how the party understands its own historical and cultural legitimacy, and it directly informs policy decisions across education, cultural affairs, economic restructuring, and international communication. It is, in short, a practical framework rather than rhetorical window dressing. Finally, the two integrations represent a significant contribution to global Marxism and to non-Western paths of modernization. As other countries, particularly in the global South, study China's example, they are also encouraged to draw from their own civilizational wisdom. In short, understanding the two integrations is thus essential not only for grasping the deep dialectics of China's national rejuvenation, but also for seeing how this logic can help them to achieve their own developmental breakthroughs by tapping into their distinct cultural traditions and synthesizing external insights in ways that reinvigorate rather than erode their own civilizational heritage.
Thank you for sharing with us your insights on President Xi's two integrations concept, a major theoretical breakthrough that informs China's governance and is likely to provide inspiration to other developing countries experimenting with non-Western paths of development. Throughout this series, we'll be exploring topics related to President Xi and how governance is practiced in China. To stay up to date on the podcasts, visit the Beijing Review website, bjreview.com. Find us on YouTube or Spotify with the tag Beijing Review, or look for us where you get your podcasts. I'm Lu Yan in Beijing. Thanks for listening to the Governance Podcast. Bye for now.